We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insight, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Monday, May 19th here in Seoul. I'm Songjin, and you're tuning into News Generation. Joining us today is Ki Kim.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. And Park Ki-eun.
Good morning, thanks for having me.
Good morning. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. So, every Monday, we talk about topics that matter to young people here in Korea. Now, today is actually Coming of Age Day, a national celebration held every third Monday in May to mark the transition into adulthood. But what does it really mean to be an adult? And do young people today still agree with the traditional ideas of adulthood? So, today we're going to find out the answers to those questions. So, we're first going to start by clarifying how adulthood is defined or determined here in Korea. I want to ask you, Ki-eun, what's the legal definition of being an adult here in the country? And do most people agree with that definition nowadays?
So as of January 1st, 2022, the legal age of adulthood here in South Korea is 19 years old by international age, and it was officially designated in 1973 in an effort to raise awareness of the rights and responsibilities that come with becoming an adult. Those born in the year 2006, before May 19th, which is today, will celebrate the Coming of Age Day as they officially become an adult. Yay! Congratulations for you 2006ers.
Very young people.
Very young. However, according to a survey, people's perception of adulthood does not solely come down to age in itself, but other different factors that we will be navigating throughout today's episode.
Right.
In fact, only 32% of MZers under the age of 20 actually thought of themselves as like a real adult. And I'm sure Ki would agree with me on this. Back in the day, like including myself, we were very eager to hit the legal age because it will give us more freedom to do the things that we've always wanted to do as adults. I won't go into too much detail of exactly what we wanted to do.
I think our viewers will know.
Exactly, I'm sure they will as well. But however, it seems youngsters these days have a kind of like the opposite mindset where they feel that they're not actually quite ready, not there yet to actually take on all the responsibilities of becoming an adult.
And Ki, I want to ask you, what kind of conditions do most young people think that should be reached these days in order for them to feel like they have become adults?
Well, it's been quite a long time, so I try to recall what it feels like to be an adult. But there's actually a survey conducted about what Korean people think about adulthood. And many people see adulthood as more than just reaching a certain age. So if you take a look at the screen now, 60% said those raising children are adults. That's me. And 47% think those who are married, 45% think those who have a full-time job are considered to be experiencing adulthood right now. And whereas only 35% pointed out that those who are 20 or older are adults. So there's also a broader perspective on what it means to be a mature adult. It's less about asserting oneself or more about adapting to the needs of a situation, recognizing and uplifting others' strengths, and choosing to share personal experiences rather than criticizing others' mistakes. And many think that emotional or mental element, maturity is essential element of being a real, true adult, not just life milestones of what they have achieved.
So it's not just the legal age that defines what adulthood is. So all of us here in the studio today are technically adults as we've passed the age of 19. But here's the real question. Do you really feel like you are an adult? What would you say?
Well, technically I am, and quality-wise, I'm not sure. I'm slowly losing my stamina, and I wake up from the bed. It is kind of tough for me, and I can't run longer. But there are two significant events that made me feel like I've actually grown up and I became that I'm an adult. So number one, the first one was when my baby boy was born, and since then, whatever I do, I feel super responsible on what I do, how I talk. Just literally about everything I do. It's just an indescribable feeling being 20 and being able to drink, getting a job, going on a trip to another country all alone or with your friends, owning a car, living alone for the first time, giving some money or gifts to your parents, all sounds good, but it doesn't compare anything giving birth to a child and raising them. And another event was when I actually lost my father, and that made me feel like I became an adult in a different way. To any son, father is always a big figure, and losing that figure feels like you've lost a big shield for the world, because now you truly have to face the world all alone, all by yourself, because you don't have that big old man covering your back. So there you have it.
Well, now you've become that big shield for your son, right?
Yes, exactly.
Then what about you, Kim? What would you say?
I think I'm slowly getting there, but I still, after hearing what Ki just said, I still have a long way to go to become a real adult. But growing up, I thought of adulthood as actually getting married, having kids. So basically becoming a father.
I think a lot of people still think like
so
that.
too, and because having a family obviously comes with a lot of responsibility, sacrifice, and a high level of maturity. And back then, I didn't think about all the things that actually came with becoming an adult, including becoming independent from your parents. And I only started to realize how difficult it was living alone without any parental support, like financial support, of course, once I actually experienced it myself. So, and also going through my teens, my 20s, and now hitting my 30s, I think back at what my parents actually went through at this age, and it's incomparable.
Right,
I mean,
definitely.
They went through so much more than what I'm going through right now, especially having to raise two naughty boys, me and my brother. Right now, I cannot really imagine myself having two kids, having to raise them, and that's why I fully respect Keith for doing his best as a father, playing that role. Because nowadays, less people are getting married.
Right, and having kids.
And having kids, of course. And it is another separate issue that we've talked about many times. But these factors all play a big role in changing our aspect of how we think of what an adult is.
Yeah. And how you view life.
How we view life. So I think really comparing myself to what my parents went through, it really gives me a good sense of, I guess, knowledge of what it really means to become an adult.
I couldn't agree with you more. All right, so we've heard from our panelists. Now, to get more opinions, we also asked our viewers on our Arirang YouTube channel with the question, what defines adulthood? The top answer that our viewers gave was emotional maturity, followed by financial independence, age, and others. And we're also going to read out 3 comments. Our first comment for this Monday is by Nice Choices 2955. No doubt emotional maturity for me, being able to be stable emotionally and mentally within oneself first before others. Benny T97 says emotional maturity because I now see various situations in life in a different way than I used to. Our final comment is by DS92KO. I chose financial independence because honestly, whoever really feels emotionally mature, adulthood for me is about being able to take care of yourself, make your own choices, and take responsibility for them, and being financially independent plays a huge role in that. All right, back here in the studio, here in Korea, there is still a lingering idea that becoming an adult means moving out, earning your own living, and starting a family. But by that standard, would you say that most millennials and Gen Z in Korea are considered adults? What would you say?
Yes, so according to a report from the Seoul Institute, the number of young adults still living with their parents at the age of 35 has doubled compared to 10 years ago. Among people born between 1981 to 1986, considered millennials living in Seoul, a whopping 41% are part of what's being called the kangaroo tribe, adult children who continue to living with their parents and remain financially dependent on them, like boomerang kids. 4 out of 10 are still living at home. Now, this isn't just about comfort or convenience. It reflects the real challenges. Economic pressure, delayed marriage, and rising housing costs are all making it harder for young adults to move out and live independently.
Right, so it's not just living with your parents. As we mentioned in the top of our show, there are other factors that were traditionally considered the conditions to becoming an adult, but could you give us some other examples that show whether there is a delay or not?
So to provide more information with numbers, as of 2024, the actual time it took for a person to get a job after graduating has reached an all-time high of 52 months, which is 4 years and 4 months. And then the average age at first marriage, that is, has also been delayed to 4 to 5 years for both men and women compared to 20 years ago. And furthermore, the average age at which women have their first child likewise has risen from 28 to 33. So it's been 5 years, over 2 decades. So just by looking at the numbers, by standard, Korean MZers are taking much longer to become what they classify as an adult.
Right.
But however, we cannot overlook at the increase in life expectancy because we are living a much longer life compared to the past. I guess it gives us more time to check the checklist much later on in our lives, respectively.
But based on the numbers that Ki and Kyun mentioned, there seems to be a growing gap between reality and what our society traditionally expects of adults. And this wasn't the case for previous generations, such as our parents. So what do you think is contributing to this shift in delay in meeting those traditional standards?
Right, like I said before, the core issue again here is the economic difficulty. In order to establish an independent household, a certain level of financial stability is essential, but under current conditions, that's becoming increasingly difficult to achieve, especially if you want to live in Seoul.
Right.
So with the job market being so competitive, like Ki-hoon said, many young people are forced to spend more time and resources building up their qualifications, so to speak. We call it spec in Korea, which delays both graduation and entry into the workforce. As a result, the average age at which they begin earning a stable income continues to rise. And naturally, this also leads to delays in major life milestones like getting married and starting a family, giving birth to a baby, and so forth. So there it is.
And could there be other factors that could be at play, Kyun?
Right, so in the past, it was widely believed that turning 20 years old marked the beginning of financial independence. However, this cultural norm in Korea has changed in recent years. According to a survey of young adults aged 19 to 34, 68% believe it is natural for parents to cover university tuition. 62% felt that financial support is necessary until they became economically independent. And around 50% also thought that parental support for marriage and home purchases were needed. Now, interestingly, parents of these young adults shared similar views.
Really?
Actually, even more strongly. In fact, among them, 84% believe that they should help with university tuition, 70% with marriage expenses, and 60% with home purchases. And notably, 42% said they should continue providing financial support as long as they are financially capable.
Wow.
Now, looking at these general views of parents, because they want the best for their children, I know supporting them financially could seem like the most practical way. And in turn, I think children, because of these parents' mindset, they've become more dependent.
Right.
And they've become more reliant on their parents, actually longer than necessary, which is causing all these kind of delays.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of also causes problems as a society economically as well. So I think things definitely need to change in this aspect.
And we're going to talk about these potential downsides and risks in the latter part of our show. But before that, to add an international perspective, after the break, we'll be joined by a young person from Italy to see how adulthood is defined and experienced in a different part of the world. Stay tuned.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us this Monday is Adriana Maria Duello, an Italian millennial currently living in Korea. Welcome, Adriana, to the show.
Hello, hi everyone. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for joining us. So, Adriana, as we mentioned earlier, in Korea, it's increasingly common for young adults to live with their parents into their late 20s or even 30s. So, we'd like to ask you, is this trend also happening in Italy as well?
Absolutely. In Italy, even like when I was in high school or in middle school, we were already talking about this. And I think we are quite famous in Europe as well for it. So I wouldn't say only in the late 30s, but sometime even early 40s. So it is quite of an issue nowadays. And I think the reason is because of the financial burden that young people carry nowadays. It's very hard to find a job, and housing prices are quite high. So even culturally, we are very family centered, and we like to have our family around. And I think Italian parents sometimes likes that their kids stay longer with them as well.
It's quite fascinating. We can find those common things between Italy and Korea. But Adriana, I want to ask you, do you consider yourself an adult, and would you say you're fully independent, both emotionally and financially?
Unfortunately, I have to say that I am an adult. It's because I like to be a kid. So, but I feel myself as an adult, and I think it's also because I came to Korea when I was 20, so 10 years ago, and that kind of speed up a little bit this process of becoming an adult. And I had to figure out my life. I had to manage everything by myself, and I had to learn quick. I remember that I felt like an adult when, for the first time, I went to the bank here in Korea and I opened my first bank account. And I was like, wow, I'm at the bank without my parents. That's crazy. So, that was one experience that made me feel like, oh, now I'm an adult. Now I have to figure out this difficult stuff all alone.
I cannot agree with you more, Adriana. Now, in your own words, how do you define adulthood?
Wow, that's very complex. As you were saying a while ago, it's not just a matter of age, but there are so many parameters. I would say, as I mentioned a while ago, emotional maturity, but also being mentally stable, someone that is quite balanced and doesn't just react by impulse. And yeah, so I would also say that, as I mentioned a while ago, it's a process. And since we are all different, this process can be short, long, can start earlier or later. So I don't really judge that. But someone that is reliable, not only for other people, but also for your own life, that's for me an adult, I would say.
All right, Adriana, thank you so much for joining our show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so wrapping up, more and more people around the world are redefining what adulthood means. As Adriana mentioned, it's not just a matter of age, but this shift can come with its own challenges, as we briefly mentioned before our live interview segment. So do you think that there are any downsides or potential risks?
Well, there is a song called 서른쯤에 about when you're 30s by late Kim Kwang-seok. That's because back then we thought being 30 was becoming like real true adult, but I think we now have to change to about 40 or about 50 because trends are changing. So if we continue to overlook this trend, it could lead to a vicious cycle of poverty. In Korea, most members of the so-called kangaroo tribes are still being supported by their parents, even well into adulthood. But the concern is, unless those parents are part of a high income bracket, this prolonged financial support can seriously undermine their ability to prepare for their retirement.
Right.
So it's not just a youth issue, it's the multi-generational problem that could have long-term consequences for both families and societal issue. We've talked about 효도계약 before in the last, as a matter of fact, last week, filial piety contracts. And this is under the influence of Confucianism and our culture to respect our family, which of course I do respect, but I also believe it's very important to let our younger generation learn how to be independent and overcome those difficulties so they would know how to survive in this very competitive and fierce society.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts on this, Kyun?
Well, if there is a standard that is set by society, I think an environment that allows people to meet these standards need to be made at the same time. So one example would be creating diverse jobs for younger people so that they can actually join the workforce at a much younger age, which in turn will help them become financially independent. And by making more money, they can manage their income and plan for the future, putting less pressure on their parents. And I think this is a collective action that each part, we all need to take part in. It's the government, the school. I'm talking about schools, parents, and of course the children themselves. Right. So beginning with schools, I think school should have a program where they teach their students how to actually make money, the importance of making money, importance in investing, and how to prepare them, give them the basic outline of actually how to purchase a house, because we don't really think about this during our school days.
Right, especially when we live with our parents.
Exactly, even through university. So once we actually become, I guess, an adult, we're kind of like,
lost.
We're lost. We're like, oh my God, what do I do? Now, parents should also educate their children to become more independent from a much younger age. Reminding them that they cannot be there for them forever, because obviously parents will age and it will be our turn to actually take care of them.
Right,
so
right.
I guess even setting an age limit as to how long they can actually live in their parents' house, so that they become more prepared to, financially or mentally ready to leave when they're ready. And finally, for young people to actually realize that the world waiting for them is a real jungle out there. It's not going to be like all like fairy tale, all lovely. And there must be acquire survival skills for them to actually, in order to survive in this real world. And it's great being optimistic and having, great dreams, but
being realistic
and expecting the worst at times can really help you mentally better prepare for you to actually tackle all these things that the life throws at you.
Great advice from our adult panelists today, marking.
It comes with age as well.
Marking Coming of Age Day. And
Listen to Uncle Kyun.
And Uncle Ki too?
Yes, or Grandpa Ki.
All right, and that's all we have for today, but Newsden will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks to Ki Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you, and Park Kyun.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, and to our viewers, thank you for joining us, and hope you join our show tomorrow as well. We are
News Generation.